Hello hockey fans and welcome back to another episode of Forgotten Franchises, the series where we explore notable pro hockey teams from across the sport that have been lost to the history books either due to folding, relocation or becoming defunct. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the first NHL franchise to be relocated. So join me as we explore the rise and fall of the Quebec Bulldogs. Founded in 1878 following the construction of the Quebec skating rink, the Quebec Hockey Club began its life as an amateur organisation that exclusively played exhibition games, either against teams drawn from the club members themselves or visiting sides from Montreal. Though they would take part in the 1883 Montreal Winter Carnival, the team would solely compete in exhibition games for the first decade of their existence, until eventually joining the Amateur Hockey Association of Canada in 1888. From there, Quebec, later nicknamed the Bulldogs due to their tenacious style of play, would spend the next 10 years as a member of the AHAC, finish no higher than 4th in the league standings, and post a 17-34-1 record in 52 games, before joining the Canadian Amateur Hockey League in 1899. After 7 years in the CAHL, a 25-32-0 record in 57 games, and a first-place finish during the 1904 season, the Bulldogs would move to the Eastern Canada Amateur Hockey Association in 1906, where they would spend the next 4 years and post a 13-29-0 record in 42 games during that span. Despite this mediocre record during their first 2 decades of amateur competition, Quebec came close to winning the Stanley Cup on multiple occasions. For example, during the 1894 AAHC season, the Bulldogs held a 3-way tie for first place in the standings, but the league elected to hold the playoffs solely in Montreal, which Quebec declined to compete in. While their first place finish in 1904 should have earned them the chance to challenge for the championship, but the trustees of the Stanley Cup ruled that the trophy would go to the Ottawa Hockey Club instead, the defending champions who had won the trophy during the prior 1903-04 season. Though they would be denied the award on 2 separate occasions, Quebec would finally get their hands on the championship over the coming years. Once the 1909 ECAHA season had concluded, and with Quebec posting a 3rd place finish, the Bulldogs would leave the league behind and become a founding member of the Canadian Hockey Association. However, the CHA would last just a single month before it was absorbed into the National Hockey Association. Though they had just been added to a brand new league, Quebec weren't invited to the party, as the team was rejected from joining the NHA for the league's inaugural 1910 season. Having been hung out to dry by their former contemporaries, and having been left without a league to play in for the entire season, Quebec's patience would finally pay off, as the Bulldogs would join the NHA for the following 1910-11 season as a replacement for the defunct Cobalt Silver Kings. Though they had finally earned a place in the league, their debut season wouldn't go too well, as the Bulldogs finished dead last in the NHA standings, thanks to winning just 4 of their 16 games that year. Not exactly the best first impression, folks? Despite their underwhelming debut, Quebec would quickly find their footing in the years that followed and establish themselves as the top team in the NHA. Thanks to high-scoring trio Joe Malone, Eddie Oatman and Jack McDonald, as well as the goaltending prowess of Paddy Moran, the Bulldogs would finish first place in the league standings in each of the next 2 seasons, and post an impressive 26-12-0 record in 38 games during that span. Not only would they be awarded back-to-back O'Brien Cups as NHA League champions, the Bulldogs would finally get their hands on the Stanley Cup too, as their dominant victory over the Moncton Victorias secured them the championship in 1912. If that wasn't impressive enough though, thanks to an unstoppable performance against the Sydney Millionaires the following season, as well as a controversial series against the Victoria Aristocrats shortly after, the Bulldogs would retain ownership of the cup for nearly 2 whole years. So after failing to lift the trophy on several occasions in seasons past, the Quebec Bulldogs had just clinched consecutive Stanley Cup championships. It may have taken them 24 years to do so, but I'm sure it was well worth the wait. Unfortunately though, this success would soon be followed by a gradual decline, as the team would never compete for the Stanley Cup ever again for the rest of their tenure in Quebec. After moving the team to the newly built Quebec Arena in December of 1913, the Bulldogs would struggle to replicate their recent highs over the next half a decade. Though they would retain much of their cup-winning roster for several seasons after their championship wins, in the 4 years after clinching back-to-back trophies, Quebec would fail to win the league and finish second place in the standings just once, en route to posting a 43-39-2 record in 96 games during that span. Once the 1916-17 season had concluded, and after winning 8 of their 10 games during the second half of the year, Quebec would join the handful of teams who broke away from the NHA in order to form the National Hockey League. However, Quebec's tenure in the NHL would get off to a rocky start. Thanks to longtime manager Mike Quinn being forced to retire due to ill health, and thanks to the financial impact of the ongoing First World War, Quebec were unable to secure the funds in order to make the jump to the NHL, an issue that was further exacerbated by Quebec being the smallest market in the league by a pretty sizable margin. As a result, the Bulldogs were forced to suspend operations during the NHL's inaugural season, with the promise to return once they had finally secured the finances to guarantee the future of their team. In an attempt to gather said funding, the team was sold to Canadian businessman Percy Quinn in 1918. Unfortunately though, once Percy revealed that he intended to return the Bulldogs to the NHA, and once the other NHL owners called Quinn's bluff by demanding that he ice a team for the following 18-19 season, this deal would quickly fall through, as Quinn refused these demands and the NHL cancelled the franchise. And who said the early NHL wasn't exciting? Though they had just terminated one of their founding members, the league would be forced to reverse their decision and reinstate the Bulldogs shortly after, since no other Quebec-based group came forward to ice a team. However, as punishment for Quinn's betrayal, the Bulldogs were suspended for the upcoming 1918-19 season, meaning that Quebec hadn't played a single hockey game in 2 years, and they hadn't suited up in either of the NHL's first 2 seasons. Well, that's one way to punish an owner, I guess. Having sat on the sidelines for consecutive seasons, and with the two sides seemingly unable to clear the air, NHL President Frank Calder and former Bulldogs manager Mike Quinn were eager to find a peaceful solution to this feud. After Quinn had taken Calder's advice of applying to the league for a new franchise, on December 2nd, 1919, the NHL approved Quebec's application and brought the Bulldogs back into the fold. However, when news of this deal broke, newspapers referred to the team as the Quebec Athletics, since Quinn had supposedly filed the application for a team called the Quebec Athletic Club instead of the Bulldogs. Though they would be referred to as the Athletics moving forwards, since they were owned by the same group and iced the same players, the team was identical to the Bulldogs in all but name. Because of this, I will continue to refer to them as the Bulldogs for the sake of consistency, despite them technically being known as the Athletics at the time. Sound good to you? Well, I hope so, because I'm gonna do it anyway. Having finally gotten their franchise in order after several years on hiatus, and having finally begun play during the 1919-20 season, Quebec's NHL debut would leave a lot to be desired. Though former superstar Joe Malone would rejoin the team after a dominant stint with the Montreal Canadiens, defenseman Harry Mummery would rack up 38 penalty minutes in just 24 games, and while starting goaltender Frank Brophy and mid-season addition Howie Lockhart would do the best they could between the pipes, the Bulldogs would struggle to hold their own against their new competition. In fact, Quebec would be severely outplayed all year long, as they won just 2 of their 12 games during the first half of the season and posted an identical record during the second half of the year to finish dead last in the NHL standings with a 4-20-0 record in 24 games. Though they would fail to reach the playoffs for their 5th consecutive season, the Bulldogs wouldn't remain in Quebec for much longer. Just before the 1920-21 season was set to get underway, the NHL announced that they had seized ownership of the Athletics franchise and had sold the team to the Abso Pure Ice Company of Hamilton, Ontario. Shortly after the deal was finalised, it was revealed that the Athletics would be permanently moved to Hamilton and would be renamed the Tigers moving forwards. And just like that, the Quebec Bulldogs had been relocated. But why did the NHL seize the Bulldogs and relocate them to Hamilton? Why did they move the team after finally letting them play just a year prior? Well, according to my research, NHA owner Eddie Livingstone, a Toronto-based businessman who was the primary cause of the NHL's creation, was attempting to revive the NHA and organise a rival hockey league to the NHL. Since Hamilton held great potential as a future hockey market due to its size and interest in the game, the NHL's owners wanted to prevent Livingstone from placing a team in the city, so they moved the Bulldogs to Hamilton before Livingstone got there first and prevented him from setting up shop. So thanks to their bitter rivalry with their former colleague, and thanks to the league's desire to crush the competition, Quebec City lost their most successful hockey team at the time and their first NHL franchise. Whilst I understand the decision from a business standpoint, since the Bulldogs were clearly struggling financially in the small market of Quebec City, this move must have really sucked for the fans. After all, their team had already been suspended for the first 2 years of the NHL's existence, before being relocated to a different province after a single season of play. Well, no wonder the city was so desperate for another team. So after 42 years of existence, 32 seasons of competitive play, and after 2 Stanley Cup championships, the Quebec Bulldogs were no more. While their exit from the league wasn't quite the blaze of glory that the Montreal Wanderers experienced, you could argue that it was equally as dramatic, but for different reasons. That said, considering how passionate Quebec hockey fans are, and considering the city was forced to wait nearly half a century before getting a second chance, which we'll certainly discuss at some point in the future, it sucks that the Bulldogs didn't stick around in Quebec for longer, especially during the NHL era. Sure, placing a team in Hamilton made a lot of sense for the league at the time when you consider the circumstances, but Quebec fans deserve better, at least in my opinion anyway. In the years following Quebec's relocation, several Bulldogs alumni would continue the team's legacy by producing impressive careers in the NHL. For example, high-scoring forward Joe Malone would become one of the league's first superstars since he scored at over a goal-a-game pace for his entire NHL career. Defenseman Harry Mummery would rack up 113 penalty minutes in just 51 games during his final 3 seasons in the show, while goaltender Howie Lockhart would play parts of 4 more seasons in the league, and he supposedly holds the record for the most games in which an opposing player scored 5 or more goals against him with 4. Not exactly the best record to hold, but hey, at least his name is in there somewhere. Not only that, forward Dave Ritchie became the last Bulldogs player to compete in an NHL game since he played his final contest in 1926, while Eddie Oatman became the last active Bulldogs player to compete in a pro hockey game, as he plied his trade in the minor leagues until his eventual retirement in 1939. Sounds like the Bulldogs had some pretty impressive players if you ask me. Though their tenure in the NHL was filled with controversy, and though they have become a forgettable footnote in the league's history books, the Quebec Bulldogs were one of the founding members of the league we know and love today, and they proved that a small market can still find success despite their limited potential. Sure, they may have been relocated after a single NHL season, and while neither Quebec-based franchise was able to produce long-term success, but given that the Bulldogs won 2 O'Brien Cups and a pair of Stanley Cup championships, the team certainly could have done a lot worse for themselves. And that was a look at the rise and fall of the Quebec Bulldogs. What do you guys think about the Bulldogs' legacy or their tenure in the NHL? Do you agree with the NHL's decision to relocate them, or do you think that there should still be a franchise in Quebec City? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye! A big thank you to Drew Fawcett, Houston NG, and Worthless Pieces for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.